Hey, what is up everybody? Greetings and welcome to my channel. In this video, I will be diving into one of the greatest gaming experiences that I've ever had in my life, the Saints clan history. So to start things off with this history, let's wind the clocks back to about the year 2004. Back in 2004 was when I created my very first MySpace profile. It was my actual real-life profile that was dedicated to me. Now you're probably asking yourself, well Saint, what does MySpace have anything to do with the Saints? And most of you have heard the story behind the MySpace days and how the Saints relate to MySpace to an extent. After I created my real-life MySpace profile, I was already heavily into anime and other like nerdy things such as creating comic books, writing stories. I was in high school and I was nerdy enough to go in the backyard with my brothers and my friends, and we would pretend we were Dragon Ball Z characters and spar and fight in the backyard. Like, it doesn't get nerdier than that. So, due to my anime craze that I had, I watched all of the Toonami shows that were on during that period of time back in the late 90s and beginning of the early 2000s. I watched Dragon Ball Z, I watched Ronin Warriors, I watched Gundam Wing, I watched Yu Yu Hakusho, I watched Rurouni Kenshin, I watched Cyborg 009, I watched Big O, I watched all of that shit. So, believe me when I tell you that I was a huge anime nerd. I had seen all 13. At the time, there was 13 uncut Dragon Ball Z episodes in Japanese before they were ever released in America. I watched the entire Majin Vegeta saga before it was released by Funimation. So I knew what Super Saiyans were, and I knew all of that shit. So anyway, that's kind of to give you an extent on how heavily I was into anime and things like that. Like, in my town where I grew up, it was a pretty small town back then, and anime was not well known or well received. If you were into anime back in my day, it sounds so old when I say it that way, but if you were into anime back in school in my days, you were not popular. People didn't really like you unless you were, unless there were nerds like you. And I just happened to find the right people that were nerds like me, I guess. So anyway, I collected Dragon Ball Z cards and stuff like that, and so I had a special connection with anime. My very first anime I ever watched, even before Dragon Ball Z, was My Neighbor Totoro. I was like 5 or 6 years old, give or take, and I loved that movie, and I would watch it on repeat as a child on a daily basis. Like, I loved My Neighbor Totoro. And so, just Hayao Miyazaki is a genius, and Akira Toriyama is a genius. So, anyway, this leading up to MySpace. Now we're getting the ball rolling here. So, I was so heavily into anime that I wanted to start meeting other people like me who were into that anime craze, that anime genre. So, I started looking on MySpace for people who were into anime like me, and so I would just get on there and type in anime, and a bunch of pictures would pop up, and people who were into anime, and they had like anime photos and stuff, and so I was like, oh cool, I'll go ahead and add them. And so I did, thinking, hey, this is going to be fun. I will meet a bunch of people who like anime like me. Well, lo and behold, a few days after, my adding spree, I got a message from one of the anime people, one of anime fans like me. They said, hey, do you roleplay or RP? They nicknamed it RP, and I was like, huh? Like, RP? What do you mean? And they were like, at first I was like, you mean like RPG, like Final Fantasy games or something like that? Like, because I had played Final Fantasy VII and I beat the crap out of that game, like from head to toe all the way through, so much that I broke the game. I got Omnislash on disc 1, so that's got to tell you something. But yeah, people would just ask me, do you RP? And I was like, RP, what's that, like RPG? And they're like, no, it's a thing that you can do on MySpace. You basically just type out a story about a character that you've created for yourself. You create your own character, your own original character, or you can be a character that already exists, whether it be Naruto or Goku or whoever the hell you want to be, as long if you can act like them and have their personality, then you can roleplay as them. And so I was like, whoa, this sounds actually really interesting, so maybe I should give it a try. And so, sure enough, I started role-playing, and it seemed interesting to me, and I started meeting other people, tons and tons of people, who all did the same thing. And we would get together, and we on MySpace, and we would just create these stories that were just amazing. It's like a bunch of creative minds coming together to create something amazing together, and there was nothing quite like it. It was one of the coolest experiences I'd ever had, and I roleplayed. And if any of you, if any of you know what Elfen Lied is, it's a fairly dark horror anime about a character named Lucy who is called Diclonius, which is considered to be sort of the next human evolution, and they have like telekinetic powers that they can like chop people to shreds with invisible hands. And yeah, if you guys are familiar with that anime, then you know what I'm coming from. I had just seen it. I had the entire collection on DVD, and I had watched it all the way through, and I loved it. It was a fantastic series, and so I went crazy with that, and I created an original character based on a Diclonius, and that was his name. He was a male Diclonius who had these invisible hands, and he was evil. He was sort of an anti-hero, more or less. He had evil moments, but he also had moments where he was good, and he helped people and stuff like that. So he was sort of an... Just came off, of course, while I'm recording. That's awesome. Anyway, so he was basically sort of an anti-hero, and he created so many different stories with so many people, and he also became a vampire, so he would turn other people who wanted to be vampires into vampires, and they would become his subordinates. And then in the stories he would free them, because he ended up like caring a great deal for his subordinates. He would take care of them, look after them, because they were like he was. They were outcasts. They weren't accepted. He had such an in-depth character, and he was so fun to play. But while role-playing Diclonius, I was already acquainted or befriended this individual. His name was Toby, and he started role-playing as Toby from the Naruto group called Akatsuki, which I'm sure you guys are all familiar with that. One of the coolest fucking Naruto villain group, or one of the coolest fucking anime villain groups of all time. Like, I don't even need to... I could just generalize that. I'm sure you guys agree with me. So anyway, he roleplayed as Toby, which you guys all know who Toby is now because Naruto's completed. But at the time, nobody knew what Toby's identity really was. Everybody thought he was Uchiha Madara, which didn't turn out to be the case. And, you guys know how that goes. But back then, we all thought Toby was Madara. And so he was basically, in his eyes, he was role-playing as Uchiha Madara. And so he approached me, and he was like, hey, I am creating a group. It's called the Akatsuki Saints. and I was wondering if you might be interested in participating. And I was like, oh shit, yeah, I would love to roleplay as an Akatsuki member. At the time, I wasn't familiar on who all of the characters were, because not every single character had been introduced yet. And so I didn't know who. I had only seen pictures. So I seen pictures of like Deidara and Hidan and Kakuzu, and then I saw pictures of Pain, but Pain at that time was just a silhouette with eyes, and we hadn't even seen Conan yet. So anyway, at the time, Itachi was like my favorite character ever. Like, I loved Itachi, and I was like, can I be Itachi? And he was like, sorry, Itachi's character's already taken. But, and I was like, what about Sasori? And he was like, nope, Sasori's position's already taken. So I was like, well, who can I be then? He was like, would you like to try Pain? And I was like, Pain, huh? And he was like, yeah, he's like the acting public leader of the Akatsuki. And I was like, yes, I will try him. So he told me about him a little bit, and I looked up some information on Pain. I tell you guys, I studied him inside and out, up, down, all around. I worked my ass off to study Pain's character, his personality, his flaws, his strengths, everything. I knew everything about Pain, and I became Pain. And so, anyway, this group that he created was called the Akatsuki Saints. And so there was Saint Toby, Saint Zetsu, Saint Orochimaru, Saint Itachi, Saint Sasori, Saint Deidara, Saint Kakuzu, Saint Pain. You know, you guys get it. Every character basically with the name Saint in front of them. And we became a very, very well-known MySpace group amongst the community. Everybody and anybody knew who the Akatsuki Saints were, and if you didn't, you were probably living under a rock on MySpace roleplay. If you were a part of the MySpace roleplay community and you didn't know who the Akatsuki Saints were, yeah, you were living under a rock. It's safe to say. So, anyway, the Akatsuki Saints had such a cool run, and I enjoyed every minute of it. I had practiced my roleplay skills and got much better at it, thanks to some of the influences of the other role players that I was with. Because, you know, I was fairly new to the genre, fairly new to roleplay in general. You know, I'd only been doing it for a few years, and so it was thanks to them that they, you know, that I was able to improve on my roleplay skills. And even, you know, not only did roleplay help me, you know, with my writing, but it also helped me with my grammar, punctuation. You know, I became a lot more literate than I was prior. Not that I spoke caveman language or anything, but, you know, I just became... I felt like my intelligence level and IQ increased dramatically because of roleplay. And so it's pretty interesting how that comes about. You know, you hear about roleplay happening in like professional work, like work companies and stuff, where they'll roleplay specific things to try to teach people how to be better, like charismatically and whatnot. So anyway, it certainly helped in that aspect. So anyway, sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent, but roleplay definitely is what started it all. And as time went by, you know, MySpace kind of started to falter a little bit, so we started trying to transfer to other websites. We became admins of our own website, and thousands of people just flocked in like crazy, and the Akatsuki Saints were the admins of this site, and it was fantastic. It was so fun to be in charge of a website for a period of time. Then the Saints started to dwindle a little bit. We had one of our Saint members actually passed away. He was in a car accident. He roleplayed as our Saint Kakuzu. And then after that, you know, it just kind of seemed to falter a little bit. Saint Toby kind of started to falter a little bit, and he ended up disappearing and going off and doing his own thing. Everybody just kind of went off and did their own thing. And so it was just like me, Saint Zetsu, and Saint Itachi that were left. And we kept in touch. And so anyway, lo and behold, a few years later, the guy who role played as Saint Itachi was killed in almost the exact same way that the man that role played as Saint Kakuzu was. He was killed in a car accident as well, and I was very, very close to him. His name was Nate, and he was a fucking awesome dude. And God, I miss that guy. Nate, if you're hearing me right now, rest in peace, my dude. I miss you. So yeah, after that happened and the Saints kind of went their own way, I had already bought my PS3, and I had been playing it. I mostly just bought my PS3 just to play like Call of Duty Modern Warfare with my friends, or one of my friends, because I had played it at his house and I got addicted to it, and I was like, oh my lord, I need a PS3 in my life right now. So I went out and got one, and I got Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and I was happy, and it was amazing. And then, lo and behold, I had found out that there was going to be this launch in 2008 of December, and it was called PlayStation Home. And I was like, that sounds interesting. So it launched, and I tried it, and I honestly was just like, what is this? It's like The Sims or something. Like, it felt like The Sims, but you just control an Avi, and you can give your Avi like different kinds of clothing and stuff like that. You can make it look however you want to. If your skills with face shaping and all that is good enough, you can do that. Anyway, it was crazy. It was a lot of fun, and so I started going to like different spaces and stuff, and start surfing around and trying to meet other people. But honestly, it was crazy. A lot of the people on PlayStation Home during that period of time, they were very clicky or click-ish, and that click mentality of PlayStation Home truly never really went away. If you showed up and there was a big group of people standing around talking, and you tried to walk up to them and say hello, and you were dressed in the default PlayStation Home clothing, they would tell you to buzz the fuck off. It was just like, oh my gosh, like they would judge you just because of how your character looks, because you didn't have the money to purchase things in the store to make your avatar look cooler. And so I was just like, that, it kind of, that to an extent kind of turned me off on Home a little bit. But I stuck with it, and then I started going into the stores and started buying stuff, and I started looking cooler as an Avi. And I think because of that, it sounds sad, but I think I became a part of the community, and I was much more like widely accepted, because I guess to them it looked like I took the game seriously or something. But it's still a pretty pitiful excuse not to talk to somebody if they're dressed in their default clothing. And in my mentality, in my mindset, I was like, I am never going to be like that. I'm never going to judge someone just because they're dressed in the default PlayStation Home clothing. If I see someone like that, I'm going to take them under my wing and be their friend, because it fucking sucks to be an outcast. And so, as time went by, I was still role playing. I would get off home and go role play and stuff with my Saint Pain profile and stuff. And then I was just like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna take a break from role play for a while. And then I started watching the FAMs starting to surface on PlayStation Home, and I was like, that seems interesting. I mean, I don't really I never liked how the fans conducted themselves. I didn't like to watch them judge people or walk up to somebody and just completely dog on them or just start crap with them. It was sad to see sometimes. And so I was like, okay, so I would love to create something that is the exact opposite of that. I would love to create something that brings happiness and joy and peace and unity to people, not bring something that tears people down and spreads negativity. Because let's face it, and WWW members, CSK, UMTO, all of you PlayStation Home fans that are out there, if you guys are hearing this right now, like, your clan, your group, fam, whatever the fuck you call it, it spreaded negativity. And there is no way you guys can deny that, because it certainly wasn't positive. So, anyway, I wanted to create something that had something like that, but I was like kind of stuck and I didn't really know what to create. So lo and behold, it then, like lightning, it just struck me. It struck me like lightning. And I was just like, I'm going to bring my own version of the Saints to PlayStation Home. And it's going to be different. Like, of course, it's not going to be roleplay based. It's just going to be a group, a very positive group that brings people together in unity and positivity. That was my goal. And so, sure enough, I brought it up, and I started meeting people. At the time, I was with my previous significant other, and her name was Phoenix, and she kind of was there for the groundwork when I laid down the groundwork for the Saints on PlayStation Home. And we started recruiting people, and we got more people, and then those people knew people, and then they got those people, and so the Saints were growing. We had about like 30 members at the start. It was what I call the Gen 1 Saints. And so, we have in Gen 1, we have Alpha, we have had Demon, and honestly, Alpha and Demon are the only Gen 1 Saints left. The rest of them all went their separate ways. But it was really cool. At the time, we all chose one color to be, because you could change the color of your tag, so to speak, on PlayStation Home, and our tag was purple. And so everybody had their tag be purple, and so we all looked like we blended in, and people would show up and be like, hey, what fam is this? And we were like, oh, we're not a fam, we're a clan, but we're called the Saints. And some people were like, oh man, mad respect, that's fucking cool. And some people were all like, the Saints fucking suck. Even though we don't even know you, but we're going to make fun of you anyway. It was pretty pitiful, but, that's the internet for you. Then this disaster basically struck. I did not have access to my PlayStation 3 for about 6 months or so, maybe a little less than 6 months. This was nearing the end of 2012. But one thing I forgot to mention is the Saints in general officially started in 2011, near the end of 2011. And so throughout the whole year of 2012 is when I was building up the Saints, and it was working out, and things were taking off and being really cool. But then, unfortunately, the Saints kind of dwindled a little bit once I lost access to my PlayStation 3. And I really won't get into how I lost access to my PlayStation 3. Let's just say internet access was not available, and so I could not get on. And so throughout that 6 months, I still had like Facebook, and I still had stuff. So I had a few people in the Saints that I would communicate with, and so they were still on home. They were kind of able to somewhat keep it going, but they were telling me, hey, people are leaving, we're losing contact with a lot of people. So I was like, well, fuck it then. I guess the Saints are done for. So I said, let's just disband the Saints. And then that was it. Like, I was done. Like, I wasn't going to try to bring it back. I wasn't going to try to, keep it going, because, I couldn't do anything. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't get on PlayStation Home and sort of show up and be there for everybody to sort of have a um, motivation to get on. That, oh, hey, Saint's finally back. Let's get on now. It wasn't like that. So anyway, it was very unfortunate. But then by this time I had broken up with the one called Phoenix on PlayStation Home, who helped kind of lay the groundwork for the Saints. Sorry about that. Had to get a drink of water. Anyway, so Phoenix and I were done. We were done for that time, and I ended up moving out, and I had met somebody by the name of Nikki, or as I call her, Sakura, and we had met online and decided to give it a shot. So she came to Idaho, where I live, and we hit it off. We got our own place, and we've been together ever since. But during that period of time while we were together, this was about the beginning of 2013, I had introduced her to Home because I still got on Home. Regardless, I had my PS3 back, I had internet, and so PlayStation Home was back in my life again. And this time, PlayStation Home had already gone through a revamp in 2011, so it went from being like different spaces to new and improved spaces, and so it was pretty cool. So I introduced Sakura to PlayStation Home, and then she and I would get on and hang out. And well, at the time we only had one PlayStation 3, so I would get on, and then whenever I wasn't on, she would get on. And so Sakura was like, hey, you should bring back the Saints, because I had told her about it. And I was like, hey, yeah, I used to run a group on PlayStation Home called the Saints. And she was like, oh, well, maybe you should bring it back. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I really want to, because, it's a lot of work and a lot of pressure. It's very stressful sometimes to be in charge of a big group and stuff. And she was like, well, we'll make it work. And I was like, I'll think about it. So I got on Home, and I met one of the prior Saint members. Technically, he still considered himself a Saint, but his name was Fury. And Fury talked to me, and he was like, dude, you should bring the Saints back. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, well, Sakura has been saying that too. And he knew who Sakura was. He had already met her by this time. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah. He's like, dude, just bring it back, man. It'd be so rad. There's so many people who would come back if you brought the Saints back. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. So I brought the Saints back, and this time I had Sakura with me helping me. I had Fury helping me. I had a lot of people who ended up coming back and helping me. And for some reason, I don't know what happened, but the Saints just absolutely exploded. Like, it just ignited. It sparked. Like, we ended up scheduling a Saints gathering and inviting all the Saints members, and then we told them to invite their friends, and then their friends invited their friends, and we went on this hub server. It was PlayStation Home's hub server, but it was a private server because I had access to some private servers at the time, and so only people that we invited could come to it. And so, like, we were just chilling, and we had so many people just start showing up. People we didn't even know, friends of people that we didn't know, but we ended up meeting because of them. And it was because of that gathering that the Saints, it was just like somebody just pushed a snowball down a hill, and it just started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we started meeting more people and more people and more people. And like, we just started to expand like crazy. We were getting members after members daily, on a daily basis, and they weren't just any old members. Like, they had to be interviewed. They had to be, we had to make sure that they were legit, because there was a specific code that we had to follow. And it wasn't the code you guys are thinking just yet. That code had not been created yet. But basically the code was, you had to be active and you just had to be chill. Like, are you chill? Are you a decent human being? Like, if you're a decent human being, you're saint material. That's all we ask, And, if you ever broke that code, then you'd be gone. Peace, And so we kind of went with that mindset, that code and whatever, and it was working. And then it was one of our members named Nunzio Rigatoni, which you guys are probably familiar with that name, but Nunzio Rigatoni, the best thing he ever did for the Saints was come up with the Code of Heart, which was the new code that the Saints basically lived by, which was honesty, attitude, honesty, equality, attitude, respect, and trust. The 5 words that are easy to follow. Just be a decent fucking human being. That's all we asked. Nothing more, nothing less. And thanks to Nunzio Rigatoni for that. If he ever listens to this, mad props to you. Thank you for the inspiration of the Code of Heart. Greatly appreciated. So yeah, we just started to explode. Members would just pour in. At our peak, the Saints had probably over 200 plus Saint members at that time. Over 200 members were in the Saints, and it was mind-boggling to me. There was always somebody on PlayStation Home whenever we would hang out. And I call those years from basically the year 2013 all the way to PlayStation, or all the way to Home's ending, which was 2015 of March 31st, 2015. PlayStation Home officially closed down, and between that period of time, those are the Saints' golden years. The best years of the Saints, in my opinion. Anybody who was a Saint during that period of time, or who was introduced to the Saints and brought in, is what's called a Generation 2 Saint. Or the Generation 1 Saints, the Generation 2 Saints. Then PlayStation Home closed down. The Saints were kind of stuck in a rut, but we had the idea of sort of adding a Facebook Messenger, a Saints Facebook Messenger. So anybody who's in the Saints, we'd be brought into that Saints Facebook Messenger, and we could communicate. And it was a really good way to do so. And it worked. It kept us all connected, and we were all strong. And we were like, the Saints don't have a home right now. So this Saints Facebook is our new home for now until PlayStation Home or something like it comes back. And so, the PlayStation 4 had already been released, and everybody started getting one, and there was a game that was going to be coming out in 2016. The end of 2016, in December, it was called Nebula Realms, and the Saints were planning to take Nebula Realms by storm, and we did. Like, at first it had a pretty slow start, but then it started to gain momentum, just like Home. It started slow, but then it started to gain momentum. More people started getting on. We started meeting new people, a lot of new people. We started meeting people who weren't in the Saints, but we wanted to create sort of a peaceful group alliance on there. At first it was called Project Galaxy, but then it was changed to the Ascension Alliance. And a shout out to everybody who was involved, to the Project Galaxy or the Ascension Alliance, where there's Dead Bear Nation, Blood Rose Covenant, Spooky Side, all those groups. Shout out to all of you guys. Yeah, it was pretty cool at first. We had a pretty good, positive set of groups that were all just connected to each other. But unfortunately, everybody kind of wanted to be the boss of everybody with all the groups, and so the Ascension Alliance in general just kind of poofed out, and so the Saints just kind of went solo, and a lot of people chose to go with the Saints because of how much more positive we were. And not trying to disrespect any of those other groups by any means, but the Saints it's obvious the Saints were far more positive. It's what our group is based upon. It's our rock, our foundation is positivity. And so the people wanted positivity in their life. So following a group that absolutely follows positivity and practices what we preach is certainly a group that they would want to go with. And so any of the people that joined the Saints from the Nebula Realms era would be called Gen 3 Saints, Generation 3 Saints. Gen 1 Saints were between like 2011, 2012. Gen 2 Saints were 2013, 14, 15. And then Gen 3 Saints were 2016, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So basically within these 5 years that Nebula Realms has been out. So yeah, it started to just take off, and it was a lot of fun. The Saints kind of just stuck, kept to themselves, and we had members pouring in all the time as well, just like Home. It was pretty similar, not to the extent of Home, but we never reached the capacity or the peak that we did on Home. PlayStation Home Saints back in the golden years, they were in a league of their own, and I don't think that peak and that popularity will ever be reached again. And it's safe to say that. Over time, though, things changed and people changed, and a lot of people left. Some people stayed, and now the Saints are just kind of at a stagnant standstill. We're not as official as we used to be. The group has faltered slightly. We still have loyal members, people who are good and kind to other people. We still have that connection to each other, just because all of us know what we went through, and we all have that experience together. And there's still some Saints who have been with me since 2011. That's almost over 10 fucking years now. At the end of this, it's almost 11 years. People have stuck with me in this group. And even though it's not what it used to be, there's no more divisions. There's no more division leaders. There's no more co-leaders. It's just the fucking Saints. And everybody knows who the fucking Saints are. Everybody within the group knows how we are, who we are, what we are, and how we do things, and what we're about. And I'm so grateful that the people that are currently in the group right now know that. That will never fucking change. And so, anyway, with the PlayStation 5 on the rise, and who knows what kind of games are going to come out for that. Nebula is safe. It's safe to say, yeah, people get on it, but it's dead. That game isn't going to last much longer. If you ask me, something's going to come along that is has a much larger dev team. Who knows? Maybe everybody who was involved with PlayStation Home will come back and they'll create PlayStation Home 2. This is not, I don't know if this is going to happen for real. This is just what ifs, what if scenarios. And if something like that comes along, then fuck yeah, I will try to take the Saints to that too, if possible. So, the Saints aren't dead. We're far from it. I've always said that the Saints will never die. There's no way that a group this positive and this cool can be killed. People can try, and all the people that we had fallings out with, who broke the code and we kicked out, they all swore revenge and that they were going to bring the Saints down. But you know what? It hasn't happened. This group can't be killed. I don't care what anybody says. It's too strong. And so, anyway, that's basically all I have for you guys. That is the history of the Saints literally in its entirety, from the time of its fruition until today, and what we're doing today as a group. Which honestly, it's been quiet. It's been a little stagnant, but it doesn't matter, because I know in my heart and who I am as a person that all of the people involved currently with this group are good for it. I know who they are. I know how they are. Like, it doesn't matter how stagnant we are as a group. It doesn't matter. The Saints are still strong. Because in the end, everybody involved with the Saints knows that the Saints are legit. They know that the Saints are good. We are not a toxic group. We bring about peace, love, unity, and positivity. And that's all I gotta say about that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm sorry if this just seemed to drag on, but you know, I've been meaning to make a video about this, and or a recording at least, and it just needed to be said because the Saints mean a great deal to me. It's been a part of my life for almost 15, 16 years. Since 2004. It's safe to say, like, that's when it started. That's basically when everybody, when it took off, when the Saints concept in general just took off. So it's been a part of my life, and something that's a part of your life for that long, you know, you can't just let it go. And I don't mean that as a Frozen reference. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for listening, watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video or the recording. Stay positive, love your lives, love peace, all that good stuff. And most importantly, to all of my Saints out there, I say to you, Saints up. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.